Hi everyone, it's Professor Mackey. I'd like to welcome you to this lesson on MLA format using sources. So a quick point of clarification before we get started here. In this lesson, the word citation will be used in two ways. First, we'll use it to refer to the parenthetical citation, which only contains a snippet of information and appears in the text of your essay. The second use of the word citation refers to the complete works cited list, which will appear at the end of your essay. So a citation includes the parenthetical citation and the works cited list at the end of the essay. Right now, I'd like to challenge you to list as many things as you know about the format of an MLA style works cited. Please get out a pencil and paper and pause this presentation to write down your answers. The text of the 8th edition of the MLA Handbook is 129 pages long, so there are a lot of rules, some of which will change with the next edition. A few key features, however, have remained unchanged through many editions. Here's what I found to be the most important things to keep in mind for the works cited list that will appear at the end of your research paper. First, your works cited should be organized alphabetically. It should be by the first word listed, excluding common words such as the, a, or an. Next, your works cited should have hanging indentations. Hanging indentations means that the first line is flush left and each line in the same entry thereafter is indented. And then, like the rest of your paper, all lines in your works cited list should be evenly double-spaced. That's another thing that has remained unchanged. Additionally, in your works cited list, you should capitalize the first letter of every non-common word in the title of your paper. Newspaper articles sometimes will not capitalize all of the words in the title that are not common words. So when you translate that into your MLA format, you may have to manually capitalize those words. In this slide, you'll see a sample works cited page. Notice how all the indentations are hanging and the entire text is evenly double-spaced. Additionally, the list is in alphabetical order with the first letter of each word in the title capitalized other than common words. Here are two helpful tips related to your works cited list. First, if you use citation generators, always double-check their accuracy. Sometimes these services are not updated to reflect the most recent editions of the citation handbook. Also, be very careful that you're entering information into the correct field, otherwise your citations will come out wrong. It's fine with me if you want to use our library's Noodle tools for your formatting. Just make sure that you double check your work before submitting it. Secondly, it's important that you're aware that formatting can get messed up when you upload a document. If you save your file as a PDF, it will preserve the formatting. Again, always double check your document after you upload it to make sure it looks the way that you want it to look. Here's a question worth considering. When should you use quotation marks around a title, and when should you italicize that title? Please pause this presentation to give yourself some time to think. So you want to use quotation marks for the title if the work was published as a piece of something larger. An example of this is articles in a newspaper, essays in anthologies, etc. You want to use italics to name the title of something that is self-contained and can stand on its own. So an example of this would be the name of a book, a magazine, a newspaper, a database, a website, etc. Many MLA citations will use both quotation marks and italics. For example, the title of an article in the New York Times would be in quotation marks, whereas the name of the paper, the New York Times, would be italicized since that's the larger container to which the article belongs. Similarly, the name of a web page would be in quotation marks while the larger website to which it belongs would be italicized. Can you answer these two questions about MLA parenthetical citations? First, do you know where they're located? Second, do you know what purpose they serve? MLA parenthetical citations are located typically at the end of sentences so as not to disrupt the reading experience. And MLA parenthetical citations are used to help readers find the information in a source. Between the parenthetical citation and the frame, your reader should have enough information to find this source listed in your works cited. Remember that MLA doesn't advise that you use long citations. Ideally, you would clearly state the author's name and the title of the text at the top of your frame and close out your frame with a parenthetical citation consisting of a page number, paragraph number, or a publication date. Now, there are many ways that you can format the parenthetical citations, but those are the most common options. To close out a summary, paraphrase, or direct quotation, add your parenthetical citation followed by a period to signal the end of the sentence. If you cut off a sentence, include the ellipses in the quotation to signal this. Here are a few options of what you might include in your parenthetical citation. The first option is just the number in the parentheses, which would represent a page number in a book. The second option is the paragraph number. A paragraph number could be an article or a website, something shorter, and you would signal that by PAR, period, standing for paragraph, and then whatever paragraph number it is. You can also italicize this title if you didn't already mention the title. So remember, anytime you're italicizing a title, it's a self-contained work such as a book. You can also include the publication date in your parenthetical citation. And once again, in MLA format, the publication date is the day, the month, and then the year. Remember, when in doubt, cite it out. Citations must be used anytime you are quoting, paraphrasing, or summarizing an author's words, or anytime you're piecing together words, phrases, and ideas from different sources, or if you're building on someone else's words or ideas. Remember, if you repeat a string of 3 or more words, not including common phrases and titles, you should protect yourself against plagiarism by using quotation marks around the repeated language and always including parenthetical citations at the end of the sentence. It's important that you think carefully about how you want to use a source. So you shouldn't just randomly throw in quotations or randomly summarize. Here are some tips that can help you decide when to do what. In most cases, your references to a text will be in the form of a summary. You should summarize long passages where the main ideas are important but the details aren't. People sometimes use the words summary and paraphrase interchangeably, and while both are written in your own language using your own vocabulary, these two terms don't mean the same thing. A paraphrase occurs when you put the source's ideas in your own language without greatly reducing the length of the text. If you're dealing with an important complex point, a paraphrase will work better than a summary. And then finally, when it comes to quotations, make sure that you're judicious in your use of direct quotations. In other words, you should have a good reason for selecting a particular quotation, and you should be prepared to fully explain the significance of the quotation that you included and how it relates to the point that you're making. Use direct quotations when you want to show vivid language or respond to a specific point that the author has made. Regardless of whether you're summarizing, paraphrasing, or including direct quotations, you should always use a frame. At the top of the frame, you should refer to the author by name before introducing the author's words or ideas. Always close out the frame with a parenthetical citation that gives your reader more information about the location of the information to which you're referring. Again, page or paragraph numbers are commonly included in parenthetical citations. In many cases, you may need to adjust direct quotations to improve the grammar and the readability of your essay. As long as you're not altering the meaning of a direct quotation, it's perfectly fine to make adjustments. Here are 3 of the most commonly used adjustments. First, if you're altering or adding words, use square brackets around anything that you change. Next, if you need to shorten a quotation and you're omitting words, use the ellipses to signal any words that you have omitted. And the ellipses are a period, space, period, space, period, space. And finally, if your source is citing another source and you'd like to include that, you'll need to signal the quote within the quote. There are two ways to do this. First, you can use double quotation marks to signal your original source, and then single quotation marks to signal where your source is quoting another source. Or, if you're only including the quotation that the source used and none of the source's original words, it's best to name the author of the quotation in the frame and then name the source that the author referred to in the parenthetical citation. So you can signal this by writing QTD, period, which stands for quoted in, and then wherever the words came from. In this slide, the original passage on the top has been altered for economy and grammar. In the original passage on page 6, author Eric Wilson states, "I, for one, am afraid that our American culture's overemphasis on happiness at the expense of sadness might be dangerous, a wanton forgetting of an essential part of a full life." So you'll notice the underlined phrases here. The first one, in the quotation, the verb am needs to change because the student is not the author, so that needs to be adjusted. And anytime you're adjusting any words, put them inside the square brackets. Additionally, this quotation may be a little longer than what you want to include in your paper, so you can use the ellipses to represent the sections in which the words have been omitted. At the top of the passage, "at the expense of sadness" has been omitted, and then "a wanton forgetting of an essential part of a full life" has been omitted. Remember, you can omit words as long as you're not greatly altering the author's meaning. So as an ethical scholar, you have to make sure that you're not misrepresenting the author. This slide illustrates what the quotation within a quotation looks like. In the original passage, Jack Kornfield writes, "My teacher called the center of wisdom within us, quote, the one who knows." Because you are quoting Kornfield quoting his teacher, the quotation from the teacher is now enclosed in single quotation marks, whereas Kornfield's original words appear inside the standard double quotation marks. Now I'd like you to pause this presentation to give yourself some time to practice. Assume that this is the first time you're referring to this text. Rewrite the quotation using an appropriate frame. And here's the quotation. "Writing is thinking." This quotation came from page 24 of a book titled The Craft of Revision by Donald Murray. Here's one possible way to frame this quotation. In The Craft of Revision, Donald Murray states that, quote, "writing is thinking," and then the parenthetical citation is 24, the page number. There are a number of ways that you can word the first part of the frame, but when introducing an author for the first time, you should always state the full name of the source and the text. In this case, the parenthetical citation is simply a number, which signals that the quotation came from a page in a book. Now I want you to take a moment to practice paraphrasing. Assuming that this is not the first time you're referring to this author, use an appropriate frame to paraphrase the following passage. And here's the passage. "Feelings are what connect us to life and to one another. To be able to feel is one of the extraordinary gifts of humanity. To neither suppress our feelings nor be caught by them, but to understand them, that is the art." So this quotation comes from page 195 of After the Ecstasy, the Laundry, the book by Jack Kornfield. When paraphrasing, there are infinite possibilities of what you might write. The main thing to remember is that you're using your own words and putting quotation marks around any wording that is repeated from the original source. So here's one possible paraphrase. Kornfield points out that the, quote, "art of living is to appreciate and understand our feelings instead of trying to control them, as feelings are a, quote, gift that ties us to each other," and then the parenthetical citation is the page number 195. So even if you're only repeating a single word, you may want to use quotation marks, as it's always better to be safe than sorry when it comes to avoiding plagiarism. I understand that this lesson can seem technical. I've tried to highlight the key concepts that you can transfer between disciplines. concepts that will remain unchanged with each successive update of a documentation system. The key takeaway here, however, should be that while the documentation formats and systems may vary, citations must be used in every discipline.